Okay, so let's talk about some international headlines. President Trump saying that he's working to reestablish a U.S. presence at Bagram Airbase in Afghanistan. This is 4 years after America's chaotic withdrawal from the country left the base in the hands of the Taliban. The president floating the idea during a press conference with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer as he wrapped up a state visit to the United Kingdom. He tied it to the need for the U.S. to counter its top rival, China. Retired Marine Intelligence Officer and host of the Strap podcast, Hal Kempfer, is here to discuss. Hal has worked with forces going in and out of Bagram in the past. Let's just start off with the basics here, Hal. Why is Bagram important? Why does the U.S. want it back?
Well, Bagram was our big base. It's not that far away from it's actually in the center, I should say, of Afghanistan. It's not that far away from Kabul itself. The president himself, I think he said 20 miles. I don't know if it's exactly 20 miles away, but it's pretty darn close. And we built it up. I mean, that was our main hub where we brought stuff in. And if you look at that area, the reason it was so important was because the only way we could get stuff in was you had to take it up through Pakistan, or you had to bring it down from the north. And both of those were very difficult routes. Pakistan, of course, the roads that go through Pakistan, that's some areas that are controlled by a number of militia groups that were none too friendly to us. So that was always a difficult way to get stuff in. So a lot of stuff ended up getting flown into Afghanistan. Of course, for those who don't know, it is a landlocked country. The other side, if you go to the other side, the non-Pakistan side, that really is Iran. So obviously nothing we were doing there ever came through Iran. So by virtue of a number of necessities, if you will, Bagram became this major hub for all of our activity. That's where things tended to center, was on Bagram. And of course, President Trump was very critical of the fact that we pulled out of Bagram before we pulled our forces completely out of Afghanistan. And he cited that as the reason it did not end as well as he thought it should have ended.
Do we know what the Taliban has been doing with Bagram in the interim?
Yes, they've been using it. And more importantly, there's been reports coming out consistently that the Chinese have been flying stuff in and out of there and trying to set up operations there. So I think really, and that's actually what President Trump cited, was the fact that China was so close, that it was, not that far away. But, there's a tremendous amount of resources that could be exploited, about $1 trillion worth of rare earths and other materials that could be exploited from Afghanistan. And I think that looking at the economic opportunity, but also looking at doing something that would thwart Chinese influence in the region, that's big. And it may be that we have made some inroads with our relationship with Pakistan. Pakistan has been very open to Chinese Belt and Road initiatives. China has been working a lot with Pakistan. We, on the other hand, have been basically working on a relationship with India for a very long time. And it may be that things are switching. It may be that Pakistan is looking at this. And Pakistan has had some frustration working with China on a number of projects, and it might be that they are kind of working in the background there, trying to say, hey, look, we have communications with the Taliban. We can kind of put this together. I kind of got the impression from what President Trump said that there may already be discussions somewhere directly with the Taliban. He didn't admit that, but I kind of got the impression the way he said it, that it wasn't something he just pulled out of a hat. It was something that was probably ongoing, that was being kept very close hold. You can imagine the politics of something like that. And that's why I'm assuming that maybe we've had enough success or enough momentum there that he felt that he could say something publicly about it.
Looking at video from earlier today, as Trump was still in the United Kingdom, he met with Prime Minister Keir Starmer today. As you mentioned, this is where this conversation began earlier today. That's what spurred the conversation. So just a question about the nuts and bolts of how something like this would work. Would the U.S. have to negotiate with the Taliban to make this happen?
I can't see any other way. You have to negotiate with the Taliban. They are the government. They may not be the government we want, but they are the government. They control Afghanistan. They control Bagram Airbase. By the way, we're not going to operate in a country surrounded by hostiles. That's just not going to happen. You're not going to be flying stuff in and out of an airbase where the entire government there is against you. So you're going to have to come to some sort of agreement with them as far as what we would do. And I have to say, the other side is for the Taliban, this is difficult for them. I mean, let's just say that our relationship with the Taliban has never been good. And ideologically, they're very opposed to everything that the United States represents. So for them, it would be something of an ideological challenge to come to some sort of agreement with the United States that would allow us to operate there. I am, other than blocking China's influence into Afghanistan, I am kind of wondering what exactly is the math that's justifying us wanting to move back in there? Because there's a lot of it's going to be a lot of expense. It's going to be a lot of work setting something up there. We're going to be putting a number of troops in an area which generally was pretty hostile when we were there last time. And I'm not saying it won't be a little bit hostile this time. Even though the Taliban controls the country, they don't control everything there. And there are other groups there that oppose the Taliban that would certainly also equally oppose us. And I can think of the ISIS organization there that would oppose us and was responsible for some of the stuff we saw when we pulled out of Afghanistan. So I'm kind of wondering how they would negotiate this, put it together, and get us back in there. I'm also kind of wondering what the situation is on the base right now. We left a lot of stuff there, but we would have to go through and look at everything that was there, validate it, make sure it's their structural integrity and everything else. Also, make sure there's no booby traps or anything like that that could have been stuck in there that pose a threat to our troops, and generally just do a lot of security stuff across the board to make sure that that base is something that we can operate from again.
So I was reading some reporting in the news wires. The Associated Press says that the Taliban is interested in normalizing ties with the U.S. after experiencing a virtual geopolitical blackout. That's the way they put it. They say that the blackout is due to international diplomacy over human rights abuses. Can you elaborate? What type of abuses are we talking about?
Everything you can possibly think of. Torture. I mean, one of the things that really this just infuriates the West across the board is the way they treat women and denying education to girls. That has been a big stickler. But the other part is, all the other things that they do, torture, public killings, you name it. They're pretty ruthless. I was going to say. They represent a humanity that we probably would have been more familiar with 1,000 years ago, but certainly not today. And that's who they are. They're very barbaric, and they have this very extreme interpretation of Islam, which is kind of mixed in. They will never admit this, but it's mixed in with a lot of tribal traditions or traditions, cultural traditions from that area, which go back a very, very long time. It's always been a very isolated area. Although, interestingly, if you go back to the Afghanistan in the 70s, it was a very different place before the Soviets came in. Before the Taliban were ever around or anything like that, it was a very, somewhat tolerant country for a lot of different things. And it is not that today. And it was a very difficult 2 decades that the U.S. was there, where we were trying to create a democracy in that land, and obviously it didn't succeed. So it would be very difficult. But there has been a virtual blackout. I mean, no other countries really want to deal with Afghanistan. The other part is no other countries really have a need to deal with Afghanistan that bad. It is easy to kind of cut them off from all foreign aid. And the U.S. was kind of at the forefront of that, making sure that no foreign aid or very little foreign aid would get there, and whatever got there was very tightly controlled. And they also, the other problem is that they've had a number of challenges within the country. You may have recently saw they had some big earthquake in the eastern part of the country, and they had a very, very difficult time with the government getting in there to help the people who were there. And when there's disasters and the government is sitting there and is seen as something that can't help, that causes them, despite the fact they're not a democracy, that causes them huge internal pressures, dissension, frustration with the government. And I think that earthquake may have had some ripples, if you will, across the body politic that they are responding to a certain degree.
I had to ask you about Bagram, Hal. If you will, stick around for a moment. The other thing that we have to talk